She set the second of her two small steamer trunks on the lobby floor of the Drovers Hotel and put her gloved hand on the desk and asked for the room she had written for, and the thin clerk behind the desk did not look up from his book. "The book is closed, ma'am. The book is closed. For the night. There is a line of people behind me waiting to write their names in the book that is closed." The clerk did not answer. Iris Renault was 26, dust-grayed at the hem of a faded dove-gray traveling dress, her dark hair pinned up under a small worn traveling bonnet, the letter she had folded into her glove that morning still in her glove. She had written ahead for the room 6 weeks back, and the letter had her name in the hand of the previous owner of the hotel agreeing to $1.10 a week. She unfolded the letter on the desk under her gloved hand. Before we continue, if stories like this mean something to you, hit subscribe and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. We love seeing how far these stories travel. "That is my letter," she said. "I see it. The owner agreed to the room. The owner has reconsidered. Why has the owner reconsidered?" The clerk's eyes moved to a small note pinned to the back wall behind him under a brass nail, and they moved back to the closed book, and he did not say. There were 6 people in the line behind her. The first was a drummer in a brown coat with a sample case at his foot. The second was a woman in a black bonnet holding a tin of lamp oil bought across the street. The third was a man of about 34, broad in the shoulder, lean across the chest, in a faded blue chambray work shirt and dark canvas trousers, and a worn brown felt hat held off his head in his hand, a small, bone-handled folding knife clipped at his belt, and the faint dust of the sale yard still on his sleeves. He had been third in the line for the better part of 3 minutes, and he had heard the matter from the start. He stepped 1 step forward out of the line. "Ma'am." She turned the smallest fraction of an inch. "Hold a moment." He looked past her to the clerk. "Mr. Press." The clerk's eyes lifted at last. "What is the room a week?" $1.10, Mr. Brun." "What is the hotel?" "I beg your pardon, sir. What is the hotel? What is the building? The land it stands on? The lease behind it? What is the figure?" The clerk did not answer at once. The drummer behind Iris Renault shifted his weight off his sample case and set it down again. The woman in the black bonnet did not move. "I would have to ask Mr. Cobb. Mr. Cobb is across the street at the bank," said Kale Brun. "I saw him come in there at 11:30 on my way over from the yard. We will walk across the street together at 1 o'clock when the bank opens from dinner, and you will tell Mr. Cobb that the cattleman who has been third in this line just now has asked the figure and means to pay it. Tell him also that the lady at the desk has a letter in her hand with his name on it, and that the lady's letter will be honored by whoever owns the desk by supper time. That is the matter." He stepped back 1 step into the line. The clerk's hand went to the pinned note on the back wall and came back without it. "Sir, I will see you at 1 o'clock, Mr. Press." He did not raise his voice. He had not raised it once. He put his hat back on his head, the way a man puts a hat on his head when he has decided what he has decided and does not need to think about it again. The line behind him did not turn around and did not look at one another, because they were 6 people in a small western town at a hotel desk who had been at hotel desks long enough to know when not to turn around. Iris Renault folded the letter back into her glove. She picked up the smaller of her 2 steamer trunks. She set it on top of the larger. "Mr. Press." The clerk did not answer her this time either. "I will be on the bench by the front window until 1 o'clock." She walked the 8 steps to the bench by the front window and sat down on it with her gloved hands folded on the worn brown leather carpet bag in her lap. She did not look at the line. She did not look at the cattleman. She kept her eyes on the dust of the road through the front window and the heat shimmer rising off the road past it, and she let her hands stay still on the carpet bag because she had trained fidgeting out of herself a long time before in a kitchen her aunt had been particular about. The line at the desk thinned. The drummer wrote his name in the book that had been closed and had been opened again the way a book is opened when a thing has shifted in a room that no one in the room is going to name. The woman in the black bonnet wrote her name. A tall freighter behind her wrote his. The last two men in the line stepped up in their turn. Mr. Press wrote each name in the careful small hand of a clerk who had been writing names in a book for 11 years and who did not look up from the book. Kale Brun did not write his name. He did not step up to the desk. He walked out of the hotel at 20 minutes to 1 with his hat in his hand and crossed the boardwalk and stood at the rail of the corral at the side of the hotel where his bay horse was stalled, and he laid his hand on the bay's neck for a moment, and then he walked down the boardwalk in the noon glare past the saddle shop and the feed store and the dry goods to the bank at the far end of the block. Iris Renault watched him go from the bench by the front window without seeming to watch him, because she had trained that out of herself too. At 1:15, he came back up the boardwalk in the noon glare and came in the front door of the hotel and stopped at the desk and laid a folded paper on the wood between him and Mr. Press. That is the deed. Mr. Press did not say anything. Open the book. Mr. Press opened the book. The lady's name is Renaud, Renaud. The room is the front room on the second floor that takes the morning light. The rate is $1.10 the week as agreed in the letter the lady has in her glove, and as it will continue at $1.10 the week for as long as the lady chooses to stay in it. Write it. Mr. Press wrote it. Kale Brun turned from the desk. He came across the lobby to the bench by the front window. He took his hat off again. He did not sit down. Miss Renaud. Yes, your room is the front room on the second floor that takes the morning light. The clerk will help you with your trunks. Supper at the hotel is at 6, and breakfast is at 6. I have asked the cook to set a tray for you tonight in your room if you would prefer it tonight, on account of the road today, and tomorrow you may come down to the dining room at your hour. The rate is $1.10 the week. The letter in your glove is good for as long as you choose to use it. That is the matter. She looked at him a long moment. Mr. Brun. Yes, I would like to know why. He held the look without making anything of it. Because the letter in your glove was a contract, and a contract is a thing a town honors, or a town does not. This town will honor it. Yes. He put his hat back on. I'll see you at supper tomorrow if that suits you. It suits me. He nodded once. He picked up the smaller of her two steamer trunks himself, because the clerk had not yet come out from behind the desk, and he carried it up the stairs ahead of her, and she came up the stairs behind him with the carpet bag in her hand, and the line behind her closed up at the desk in the way a line closes up after a matter has been finished in front of it. That was the first hour of Iris Renaud at the Drovers Hotel. The room on the second floor that took the morning light was small and clean. A narrow, iron-framed bed under the window with a cream-wool blanket folded at the foot. A single wooden chest at the wall with a hammered tin water pitcher and basin on top. A single wall peg by the door. A wooden chair beside the bed. A small writing table under the window with a paper-wrapped cake of soap and a fresh stub of candle on it. She set the carpet bag on the chest. She set the smaller trunk at the foot of the bed where Kale Brun had set it. She took off her bonnet and hung it on the wall peg. She sat down on the bed for the first time in 9 days. She did not cry. She had trained that out of herself, too. She slept that night without the tray she had been offered. She had not been able to take it, because she had not yet been able to put herself in a chair in a room she had been told was hers and call it hers. She slept in the dress she had come up the stage in, on top of the cream wool blanket, with the carpet bag at the foot of the bed. She woke once at the hour the night clerk turned the lamp down in the lobby, and once at the hour a horse went down the main street at a walk, and once at the hour before dawn when the cottonwoods at the irrigation ditch behind the hotel began to move in the cool that came before the sun. She did not get up for any of them. She lay still and waited for the light. In the morning at 9:30, Marston Cobb came back across the dust of the main street to the Drovers' Hotel and came in the front door with his hat in his hand and the smile he had been a hotel keeper for 11 years with, and he laid a folded paper on the desk in front of Mr. Press, and he asked Mr. Press where the new owner was. "He is in the dining room," said Mr. Press. Marston Cobb walked into the dining room with the folded paper in his hand and stopped at the table where Kale Brun was eating his breakfast, and Iris Renault was at the next table with her own breakfast and a cup of coffee, and the dining room was full enough that morning that the matter would be heard. Mr. Brun, Mr. Cobb, a word. Kale Brun set his fork down. He did not stand up. He turned the chair beside him so the seat faced into the room and laid his hand flat on the table once. Marston Cobb did not sit in the chair. "I have come to say a thing. You may say it. The matter of the lady at the desk yesterday was a private matter. I had been told a private matter about the lady from a man at the freight house who has known the lady's people for some years, and I had taken the matter at the value the man set it. I had not had a chance to put the matter to you before you walked into the bank yesterday at 1 o'clock. I would like to put it to you now. Mr. Cobb, yes, I bought the hotel yesterday at 1 o'clock for the figure you set me at the bank, which was a fair figure, and I paid it. The hotel is mine. The lady's room is the front room on the second floor at $1.10 the week for as long as she chooses to use it. The lady's letter is honored. The matter you came in here to put to me is a matter I bought yesterday at 1 o'clock, and a matter I am not going to hear in this dining room at 9:30 in the morning. If you have a private thing to say about the lady, say it to the lady. She is at the next table. You may say it to her face, or you may not say it. That is the figure I will hear it at." Marston Cobb's smile did not change for one breath. Then it did. Then it went. He looked at Iris Renault at the next table. Iris Renault was buttering her biscuit the small, careful way of a woman who had been raised somewhere to butter biscuits carefully, and she set the knife down on the edge of her plate, and she lifted her gray eyes level to Marston Cobb's face, and she did not say anything. Marston Cobb did not say it to her face. He put his hat back on. He went out the dining room door. He went out the front door of the hotel. He crossed the dust of the main street at a walk, in plain sight of the road, with the morning sun on the back of his coat and the dust at the boardwalk settling slow behind him. Kale Brun picked up his fork. He did not look at Iris Renault across the gap between the tables. He went on with his breakfast. Iris Renault finished her biscuit. She finished her coffee. She did not look at him either. That was the second public matter of the Drovers' Hotel. The town heard the second matter by noon. The town had heard the first matter by supper time the day before. Mrs. Idell Vine, who kept the mercantile across the street from the hotel, and who was 61 and the widow of a freight clerk and had taken upon herself the moral health of the south end of the main street in the years since her own children had married off, was waiting for Iris Renault to walk into the mercantile alone. Iris walked in on the Tuesday at noon for 2 yards of muslin and a tin of lamp oil. Miss Renault, Mrs. Vine, I have been hearing. I'm sure you have. Mrs. Vine set both gloved hands flat on the counter. I have heard the matter of Mr. Cobb at the desk on Monday. I have heard the matter of Mr. Brun at the bank on Monday. I have heard the matter of Mr. Cobb at the dining room on Tuesday. I have not heard the matter the man at the freight house gave Mr. Cobb. I would like to hear the matter the man at the freight house gave Mr. Cobb from you, since the matter has now been bought. Mrs. Vine. Yes, the matter the man at the freight house gave Mr. Cobb is a matter of a man in Cheyenne who told my aunt a thing about me that was not true, and who told other people the same thing for the same reason, which was that my aunt would not give him her note on a piece of land she had been holding for me since I was 9. My aunt did not give him the note. He went on telling the thing. He told it to a freighter on the Cheyenne Road who tells things at every stop he makes. The freighter told it at the freight house at this town 3 weeks ago. The freight house told it to Mr. Cobb. Mr. Cobb closed the book on the room I had written for. That is the matter. The thing the man in Cheyenne told is not true. I have a letter from my aunt in this carpet bag in her hand, addressed to whomever it concerns, that says it is not true and what is true instead. I have not yet shown the letter to anyone in this town because Mr. Brun did not ask to see it. Will you sell me the muslin and the lamp oil, Mrs. Vine, or am I to walk down to the freight house for both? Mrs. Vine did not move for one long breath. She sold Iris Renault the muslin and the lamp oil. She did not look at her when she rang it up. She folded the paper sack down with the careful precision a woman uses when she has been spoken to, playing at her own counter, and is determining what to do about it. When Iris Renault left the mercantile, Mrs. Vine said one thing to her at the door in a voice she did not raise. Miss Renault, yes, Mrs. Vine, the letter from your aunt. It is in the carpet bag. You may leave it in the carpet bag. Iris Renault walked out into the noon heat and crossed the dust of the main street back to the Drovers' Hotel. And she did not let her hands shake on the paper sack because she had trained them out of shaking a long time before in the same kitchen that taught her about biscuits. She did not see Kale Brun for 2 days. She saw him on the Thursday at supper at 6. He was at the long table at the far end on the right in the chair he had been sitting in at every meal she had taken in the dining room that week, and his brown felt hat was hung on the wall peg by the dining room door at the second peg in the row, which had been empty when she had walked in on the Monday afternoon, and which was beside the peg her own dove-gray traveling bonnet had taken on the Tuesday. She had not commented on the move of the hat, and Kale Brun had not announced it. She sat down at the chair across from him at the far end on the left, which was the chair the new boarder takes for the first week, so the other boarders may look at the new boarder, and so the new boarder may look at them. Mr. Brun, Miss Renault, I would like to know one more thing. You may ask it. The figure you paid Mr. Cobb at the bank on Monday at 1 o'clock. He looked at her a long moment. It is paid. I know it is paid. I would like to know the figure. He did not answer her at once. He cut a piece of the beef on his plate. He set the knife down. He looked up. It is the figure of a hotel. I know it is the figure of a hotel. It is the figure of this hotel, Miss Renault. It is not a small figure. I will tell you it if you ask it. I would rather you not ask it tonight at this table at supper at 6. I would rather you ask it in another week when you have had the week to look at clean what I bought. She looked at him. What did you buy, Mr. Brun? He picked the knife back up. I bought a contract a town was about to break. I bought it because a town that breaks a contract on a Monday at noon We'll break another one on a Tuesday at noon, and a third one by Friday. And I have a cattle business in this town, and a cattle business needs the desks of a town to be the desks they say they are. That is what I bought. The ladies' room came with it. That is what you bought. That is what I bought." She did not answer for the space of 3 breaths. She picked up her own knife. She buttered her biscuit. She set the knife down on the edge of the plate. "Mr. Brun, yes, that is not all of what you bought." He did not answer her. She did not ask again. By the second week, she had taken on the morning bread at the hotel kitchen, because she had asked the cook on the Monday whether the cook wanted her to take it on, and the cook had thought about it for the space of 1 breath and said, "That suits," and the bread had been hers from the Tuesday morning on. By the third week, she had taken on the kitchen scrub on Wednesdays and Saturdays. By the 4th week, she had quietly mended the curtain on the dining room window that had been hanging on 3 threads since the previous spring, and Kale Brun had noticed it that evening on his way out to the corral at the back of the hotel where his bay horse was stalled, and had said only, "That is better," and had gone on. The kitchen was hers in the way a kitchen becomes a woman's kitchen, when she has stood in it for 14 mornings in a row at 4 o'clock and put the dough up and put the coffee on and set the long table for the boarders. The cook was a heavy, quiet woman named Etta Voss, who had cooked at the hotel for 9 years and who watched Iris work the dough for 3 mornings before she said anything, and on the 4th morning she said only that the bread was good bread, and Iris said only that her aunt had taught her, and Etta Voss said only that the aunt had taught her well, and they did not speak again of it. By the 3rd week, Etta Voss had moved her own wooden bread bowl 1 shelf down on the kitchen sideboard to give Iris the bowl with the wider rim that took a 4-loaf batch, and she had not announced the move, and Iris had not commented on it. The slow geographical shift was in the hat on the dining room peg. It had moved on the Tuesday from the 2nd peg to the 3rd peg, which was the peg beside her bonnet. It stayed there. The slow geographical shift was also in the table. By the 3rd week, she did not sit across from him at the far end on the left. She sat at the chair beside him on the right. He did not announce the move, and she did not comment on it. Mrs. Idelle Vine walked into the dining room of the Drovers Hotel on a Friday in the 5th week at noon for the noon dinner, which she had not eaten at the hotel for the 11 years Marston Cobb had owned it, and she sat down at the small table by the window, and she ordered the bread and the cold beef and the pickles. She did not look at the long table. She ate her dinner. She paid Mr. Press at the desk. At the door, she stopped beside Iris Renault at the long table, in a voice she did not raise. "Miss Renault." "Yes, Mrs. Vine. The bread on Friday is good bread." "It is. I had not known it was yours. I will see you Wednesday next, Mrs. Vine." Mrs. Vine went out the front door. Kale Brun did not look up from his plate. The Cheyenne matter came back into the dining room one more time in the 6th week, on a hot Wednesday afternoon, in the person of the freighter who had carried the thing from Cheyenne in the first place, a heavy, red-faced man named Pell Garrow, who came up the boardwalk from the freight house with a bill of lading he did not need to bring to the hotel, and a thing he meant to say at the desk in front of whoever happened to be in the lobby. Kale Brun was at the lobby desk going over the week's book with Mr. Press when Pell Garrow came in. "Mr. Brun, Mr. Garrow, a word about the lady upstairs." "The lady upstairs is in the kitchen," said Kale Brun. "She is not upstairs. She is putting up the bread for tomorrow. You may say the word at this desk if it is a word that can be said at this desk, and I will hear it once. If it is the word you carried in from Cheyenne 3 weeks ago, you may turn around at the door and carry it back out, and not bring it into this lobby a second time, because I have bought this lobby and the word is not welcome in it. That is the matter." Pelgaro did not turn around at the door. He set the bill of lading on the desk. He looked at Mr. Press. Mr. Press did not look up. "It was a word I heard at a stop, Mr. Brun. I carry words a long road. A man carries what he hears." "A man carries what he hears," said Kale Brun, "and a man pays for what he carries when the thing he carries is not the thing that was true. I will not pay you for what you carried. I am telling you also that the next time you stop at the freight house at this town, you will not carry the word any further down the road in either direction, because the lady's aunt has a letter that says what is true instead of what you carried, and the letter will be at the freight house desk by the Friday stage, if I have to ride to the freight house myself with a copy of it in my hand. That is the matter also." Pelgaro took the bill of lading off the desk. He turned around at the door. He went out. Mr. Press wrote a small line in the corner of the book that was not a name, and that was not a figure, and he closed the book, and he did not say anything to Kale Brun about the line. Kale Brun went back to the corral at the side of the hotel. Iris Renault heard the matter from Etta Voss in the kitchen at 4 o'clock that afternoon, because Etta Voss had been at the kitchen door with a bowl of green beans when Pelgaro came in and had heard the whole of it, and Etta Voss told her plainly while Iris put up the dough for tomorrow's bread. Iris did not stop the dough. She finished the batch. She set the bowls on the sideboard. She washed her hands in the basin. She wiped them on the apron at her waist. She walked out the kitchen door to the corral at the side of the hotel, where Kale Brun was tightening a cinch on the bay's saddle. "Mr. Brun." "Yes." "The letter from my aunt." He set the cinch. "It is in the carpet bag. I would have you take it to the freight house desk on the Friday stage." "I will take it." "Yes." She did not say more than that. She went back into the kitchen. The bread the next morning was good bread. On the Saturday of the 6th week he asked her at supper a question that was not quite a question. "Miss Renault?" "Yes." "The front room on the second floor that takes the morning light?" "Yes." "I would have you keep it as long as you want to keep it." "You know that." "I know it." "I would have you tell me a thing, also, if you would." "You may ask it." He set his fork down. "I would have you tell me whether the front room on the second floor will be the room you are in when the cottonwoods at the ditch have gone gold and bare and green and gold again, or whether it will be a room you have moved out of by then." She set her fork down. "Mr. Brun." "Yes. I have been at this hotel 6 weeks. I have not had the 6 weeks to look it clean. I know it. I'm asking you to give me the time to look at it clean." "I am giving you the time." She did not speak for the space of 3 breaths. She kept her eyes on his. "I have one thing to ask, also." "Ask it." "The figure you paid Mr. Cobb at the bank on Monday at 1 o'clock 6 weeks ago." He did not answer her at once. "It was a figure I could pay. That is not the figure. It was a figure that left me what I came into this town with. Less the figure of a hotel. That is not the figure either. It was the figure of 3 years of cattle, Miss Renault. 3 years off the place I run 30 miles south. It is paid. It is not a figure that will come back to me. It is also not a figure that signifies anything more than a contract honored. I would have you not put weight on it. The weight on it is mine. I will put the weight on it I want to put on it." He looked at her a long moment. "That is fair." She picked up her fork. "That is the figure I am asking about, then." "That is the figure." She did not say more than that. He did not ask her to. The autumn came on slow, the way autumn comes on in that country, with the heat staying through the first half of September and then dropping in 2 days at the end of the second week, and the cottonwoods at the irrigation ditch behind the hotel going gold at the tips first and then through, and the air at the corral going clean of dust by the third week. Iris took on the supper bread by then in addition to the morning bread, because the boarders at the long table had begun to ask after it, and Etta Voss had begun to leave the second oven open at 5 o'clock without being asked. By the fourth week of September, she had moved the small writing table in the front room on the second floor under the other window, the one that took the cool air off the ditch in the late afternoon, so she could sit at it after the supper bread was on the racks and write her aunt the letters she had not been writing since the road from Cheyenne. She wrote her aunt twice in that month. Her aunt wrote her back 3 times. In the autumn, on a clear, cool Saturday in late September with the cottonwoods at the ditch just gone gold at the tips, they were married at the small white-painted clapboard chapel at the south end of the main street. Mrs. Idell Vine sat in the third pew with her gloved hands folded on her lap, and at the end of the service she stood up at the steps of the chapel and said one thing to Iris in a voice she did not raise. "Mrs. Brun, Mrs. Vine, the bread on Friday will be Friday's bread. It will. Iris Renaud." Brun walked back down the main street to the Drovers Hotel on the warm autumn Saturday with Kale Brun beside her and the cottonwoods at the ditch just gone gold at the tips above them, and the brown felt hat went back on the third peg in the row by the dining room door beside her bonnet, and the front room on the second floor that took the morning light stayed her room for another year, until she moved her things into the rooms at the back of the hotel that had been Mr. Cobb's rooms and that were Kale Brun's rooms now. In the same plain, unhurried way she had walked up the stairs behind him on the first Monday afternoon, in the way that pattern moved in that country, without anyone naming it. This was the story of Iris Renaud and Kale Brun, the woman who was refused service at the only hotel in town, and the cattleman behind her in the line who bought the hotel. Tell me in the comments if you enjoyed this one. We are always glad you came to listen.